Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo. It is Monday, which means we're like a day or possibly hours, depending on where you live and when this video goes live, away from the launch of Update 1.1 and the introduction of the very first incursion for the Division. Now, a lot of people have been asking me, Tony, like, can you throw up a guide, man? Something to help us prepare for 1.1. I don't feel there's like a really hardcore infographic mathematical approach to preparing for 1.1 in the incursion, but I do feel there is a really good set of guidelines that my squad has been looking at, considering, and discussing with one another in order to prepare for 1.1 to decide what we're going to do first, and at the end of the day, how we're going to most enjoy Update 1.1. So I did want to share that with you guys and break it down. And I think it's important that we do start by talking about the Falcon Lost Incursion, because I know there's a group of you out there who are really looking forward to this, who are potentially looking to run it day one, in which case you may not even be watching this video because you're so hardcore, you know exactly what you want to do, and you've been doing it for the last week to prepare for this. But I think there's a good set of guidelines you should consider when you're going to head into Falcon Lost. Now, of course, there's no harm and no foul into just heading into Falcon Lost and getting thrashed and then realizing you need to leave and come back at a later date. But there's still a set of guidelines you can consider if you plan on taking this much more seriously. Maybe you're one of the groups who is looking to head in and try and complete this and just, you know, be one of the first potential squads to actually finish the incursion. Now, of course, we're going to have a handy guideline through way of gear score, which is going to be a new implementation of 1.1. So right from the get-go, you're going to boot up 1.1 and be able to see a gear score for each of your individual level 30 items, and that's going to give you an overall gear score average. That's going to tell you whether or not you are essentially gear score ready for the first initial difficulty of the Falcon Lost Incursion, which is hard mode, which I believe is going to require a gear score of 160. I do feel a lot of people are going to fall into that category. But I think looking beyond gear score, there are more important elements to being successful in the Falcon Lost Incursion. Number one is the understanding of the incursion, which is just going to take time. You're going to have to fail and make your way through the incursion and fail again before you can really wrap your head around it. You have to remember, Falcon Lost has no checkpoints. Yeah, it's going to be quite the challenge. It's going to be quite the adventure. This is going to be a substantial challenge and fight regardless of how good your group is gear-wise. And I think the other aspect you need to look at is a more mental aspect of it. You know, does your group have that synergy? Are you playing with a group of people from the human element who can really communicate with one another, you know, completely on a very nice controlled basis? You can't have, you know, two people in your group constantly arguing with one another about what you should do when something goes wrong. I know it's really easy, and everyone does this, to blame someone when when things really go south and you end up wiping like 2 minutes before the completion of a really hard mission. But you have to be able to maintain that, you know, that communication, maintain that confidence and that structure within your group, and just, okay, it happened. Who cares why it happened? Let's just make sure that doesn't happen again and move forward. Because that's what this incursion is going to be about. I mean, having no checkpoints means you're going to be possibly making it all the way to the end just to fail. So from a mental standpoint, from a human element, you need to have a group of people that are really prepared for that. They're really prepared for a bit of masochism, in my opinion, to make sure that they're going to stick with you, you know, attempt after attempt after attempt until you finally beat this damn thing. Now, the other aspect, of course, that I feel you need to look at is agent build synergy. You know, you may have a group that is able to run the challenge mode all day long through use of a crazy buff in your smart cover or in your support station, but there's a possibility that's not going to fly in Falcon Lost. The developers have made it very clear that this isn't the type of game mode that you can just turtle, which is what a lot of people do in challenge mode right now, is they fall back and they turtle. I mean, it's a very common practice in the Russian consulate and the Warren Gate power plant, at least when you're not on the timer. People sit back and they turtle. You can't do that in Falcon Lost. The developers have made that very clear, and I hope that's actually the truth, because I hate that sort of gameplay. I'm totally against it. And even if I'm given the opportunity to turtle and succeed, or simply fail, I will take the failure. I'd rather fail and then succeed at a later date than turtle. I really don't appreciate that. It rips the enjoyment out of my games completely, so I'm very hopeful that what the developers are saying about being unable to do that is very true. They talk a lot, and they talked a lot during the reveal for the incursion about crowd control. That's going to be important, having a tank, having a healer. So you need to make sure that you have those agent builds assigned and that your group is as well equipped as they potentially can be. You could have a gear score 160, but that doesn't mean that your guy who's running crowd control for you has the necessary bonus attributes to make sure that his Seeker Mine or his Flamethrower turret is effective as it potentially can be. You know, if he's got like a max cooldown for his Seeker Mine, you know, he's potentially not going to be able to crowd control for you guys as often as you're going to need it. And the same can be said for a healer build or a DPS build or, you know, like a Saboteur build who's looking to debuff the enemy constantly. So that there's a lot to consider beyond that initial gear score. And I think it's important. And also, I think it's a really enjoyable part of an update for a game like this. You know, for games like The Division and Destiny, when you can sit down with your favorite group of friends, you know, your go-to squad mates, and you can say, all right, guys, how are we going to ready up for this? You know, are we ready? Maybe we should take a back seat and potentially look at some of the other ways we're going to be able to obtain gear in 1.1. So those are all things to consider. And what I also think a decent guideline is looking at how successful your team is in challenge modes. If you're struggling with challenge modes, like I said, if you want to run the Incursion for fun, go right ahead. But if you're struggling to complete challenge modes, I would say stay away from the Incursion, avoid yourself the frustration, and look at all the ways in 1.1 which we can now obtain shiny gear. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the group of people, myself and my squad included, who have really no interest in seriously taking on the Falcon Lost Incursion on day one with update 1.1. There's no doubt we're going to check it out, but we're not going to seriously run it. We're probably going to die immediately, and we're going to head back into the Dark Zone. We're going to run our dailies. We're going to run our challenge modes. We're going to complete some of those fancy new assignments. And these are all things to consider. If your squad isn't aware of all the new ways in which you can obtain gear in 1.1, make them aware. Make yourself aware. Head on out and start to pick up that new gear. Start to complete your agent builds and prepare yourself for the Incursion. Now, you know, the launch of 1.1 is going to be the best time to do this, because up until 1.1, acquiring gear has been a slow crawl. We all recognize that. There's a chance a lot of you have high-end gear, but it's not the best high-end gear. You simply just have what your tech wing vendor sold through blueprints, and you bought them with Phoenix credits that you got from running the daily hard mode or the challenge mode, and that's the end of it. You don't really have any amazing gear. Now is your time to shine. Head into the Dark Zone, drop some of those level 32 named NPCs with your buddies, look at those guaranteed high-end drops, trade those items with your friends. Oh, dude, I got that holster that you just absolutely needed. Oh, dude, I got a high-end Vector, man. I know you don't have one of those. Let's swap. You know, complete those assignments, whether you're in the Dark Zone. Assignments come in 3 forms. Not only do you have daily and weekly, but you also have combat-based ones, Dark Zone-based ones, and crafting-based ones. So there's a whole slew of ways to acquire more Phoenix credits and more gear. Not to mention all of the level changes that have hopped in the Dark Zone. Most of you are going to be able to head into DZ and buy some of the best available blueprints from the vendors. Now, all 100% with Dark Zone credits. No more of that Phoenix credit nonsense up at the church safe house vendor. And don't forget, recalibration is being completely reworked. So those of you guys who are sitting on that fat stack of credits, you can finally start to re-roll some of those attributes. Potentially, like I said, you know, you're worried about your crowd control build just not having the right attributes on your individual pieces of gear. We'll go ahead and re-roll that pointless Riot Shield health attribute you have and try and get yourself a Seeker Mine attribute. There's just a whole slew of ways to really more efficiently and more effectively build your agent for a specific role to make them more effective in challenge mode, in the Incursion, so on and so forth. There's a lot of reasons to look forward to 1.1, like I said, outside of the Incursion, and it's something I think you should consider if you recognize your group isn't geared well enough. I recognize that. Hell, we don't even have a go-to fourth, so that's something that we still have to work on. I have a friend, but it's just a matter of making sure that his group, his agent build, fits with our agent build, that the synergy is there. So that's my plan for 1.1, is to just really enjoy all of the changes, to head into the Dark Zone, maybe try and capture our very first Dark Zone supply drop, and just have fun, you know, and hopefully we're going to be able to recognize those loot drops and see that they're instantly going to affect the enjoyment and just the overall Division experience. I think guaranteed high-end drops off named enemies is going to make this the loot-based experience that it should have been from the get-go, and I think it's going to really make the game far more enjoyable for just about everyone who plays it. Now, if you guys have any, you know, ways in which your squad is gearing up or plans that your squad has for what they're going to do first when they head into 1.1, and you'd like to share those thoughts, feel free to throw them down in the comment section below. You know, there's definitely a bit of sharing that can go on here. You know, my group's doing this. Well, maybe somebody can look at what your group is doing and saying, wow, that really makes sense. You know, like maybe that's what my group will do day one. I think this could be a great little thread down in the comment section below for just sharing how you're preparing and planning to take on update 1.1, regardless of how you plan on doing it. And if you guys have any other questions or thoughts for me personally, feel free to share them down in the comment section below. Trust me, I'm just as excited to see what you guys have to say about 1.1 and what you plan on doing as I was to make this video. You know, this is just one set of opinions, my opinions. I'm sure there's a whole slew of other ways that people are looking at 1.1 in the incursion, so I'm very much looking forward to reading what you guys have to say. At the end of the day, guys, head out into 1.1, aim to have fun, stay safe, agents, and I'll see you in the next one.